architecture. We're going to have a brief welcome. Do you want to say anything, Andy?
I just want to say a couple things. Welcome back, everybody. I appreciate you guys. We are still in the learning, and the order of what we learn does not in any way measure the importance of that. It is when the information is done and comes to this group. And there'll still be a big milling sausage making when we get that. So I want to appreciate Dave. Who else? I had several people who came in that weren't here at the first meeting, and Joanne was also someone. Appreciate we got everybody met with, and they're caught up. And so people that are missing tonight, and I want to remind you that if you are going to miss a meeting, that we will catch you up with a meeting to bring you up on all of this as we go forward. All right. And so to start with, what we didn't do, and I have received a month of tongue lashings and reminders, was we didn't introduce everybody. So not everybody knew who each other was. And so if we could just go around the room. Oh, yeah.
Sorry.
Speak up, because the little white owl there in the front is collecting sound tonight. And so if we could just go around the room and introduce ourselves, our connections to the community or the district. And we will start with Joanne. Welcome here, everybody.
I am Joanne Felice. I am a Vice President of GA ACE. I'm also a school custodian at Oak Grove Elementary. I've worked for the district for 13 years. I love working with kids.
My name is Mark Leonard. Simply here as a community member. Been in Albany for over 6 years now. Very involved in school politics, both here and in our former state in the Midwest before we moved here. Wanting to contribute.
I'm Pat Eastman, community member, and since 2014, successfully unemployed.
Bravo.
Yes.
Here, next, okay. Jody Didera, principal at Timber Ridge School. This is my 12th year as principal, and I think my 19th or 20th in the district.
Good afternoon, Kevin Mansky. I'm the President and CEO of the United Way of Lynn and Lincoln Counties, and I have 4 kids, graduate GAPs, and I've been here for about 30 years.
Alex Johnson II, Mayor of Albany, Oregon. Been here 31 years, October 15th. 2 of my kids graduated, went to school here at Oregon State, graduated. And I'm a happy grandfather, and I'm just happy to be here.
That's good. I'm Doris Johnston. I'm with the GAPS Budget Committee. I'll speak up louder. And I have probably lived here maybe longer than most of you. I was born and raised in Albany. My dad was born and raised in Albany, and my grandmother was here. My son is a teacher at West Albany. I have 2 children, grandchildren, how about, in the school district, and I'm retired Pacific Power.
Dana Lovejoy, I'm the president of Greater Albany Education Association. I've been a teacher in the district 19 years, I believe. So, yeah.
I'm Beth Hinkle. I graduated from South Albany. I have 2 kids at South Albany. My husband was a teacher there, and I run the baseball youth program for South Albany, and I'm the coach there too.
Awesome.
So South Albany is on the forefront.
Rick Costin, both my kids went through Albany schools, and I'm a community member. I also went through the previous bond from beginning to end.
I am Lisa Avery, president of Lynn Benton Community College and a GAPS mom. My daughter graduated from Timber and is a junior at South.
Wow.
Liz Craig, I am the president of the Greater Albany Classified Association. I am a personal care assistant with our CTP program, Community Transition Program. I have done a lot of community work in the 15 years that I've been in Albany. My husband is an Albanian, so don't worry, I know Californians coming in. So we just love this community and super involved.
Great.
I'm Stephanie Lunsford, school board member, and I've had 4 kids that have come through Albany schools. 3 have graduated from Albany schools, each of the 3 high schools actually. So, yeah.
Great. You start. back here. Super.
So I'm Matthew Rickers, I'm the Community Development Director for the City of Albany. I have 2 kids in GAP schools, soon to be 3. I also am a former graduate of Mr. Gardner's programs in the state.
We can't remember what class I taught.
I'm Tanya Everest, and I'm here as a newly unemployed retiree. Well, 2 years. I'm learning to be as good as Pat over here. And but anyway, wanting to stay involved in my community. I am a lifelong educator, graduated from and was recently the superintendent of the Education Service District, what was assistant superintendent, briefly superintendent, and in Albany here, but curriculum and principal. And I worked in 4 of the districts in this region, in Albany, Lebanon, Scioto, and Corvallis. And I have to say, Albany is the best educational program of all of them. It enjoyed the best, and had the single best facility I ever worked in, and the best cared for facility. And so I'm here to just bring an educator's lens with a focus for kids and get involved in my community.
Good evening, I'm Tim Washko. I work at ATI. I've got 3 kids, 2 have gone through, finished through went through NAs, NAMs, and then West. I've got youngest is still a junior at West. On the budget committee as well. Just wanted to be volunteer as a community member.
I'm Max Nazarian, 2 beautiful daughters that graduated from West. I've been a 5th grade teacher at Liberty, been teaching here for 22 years, and I'm vice president of Greater Albany Education Association.
And I'm David Reese, 2nd year retired, civil engineering practice, and been here for close to 40 years. Both my kids went through North Albany Elementary, Mans, Oak Grove, West Albany, and volunteered on chamber and involved in Rotary and those things, and really wanted to see what I could do to help out.
I'm Jill Nelson, and I'm a GAPS parent of 2 kids, local children's pastor, substitute in GAPS schools, and I run a nonprofit that supports kids in poverty and our Title I schools.
My name is Bob Stolick. I came here in 1960 to teach English, speech, and theater at Albany Union High School, and I retired from this district as a superintendent. I left education in '99, and then got recruited by the Albany Public Schools Foundation to work another 14 years for free. I have 3, I was going to say kids, but my oldest is 62. She graduated along with her 2 brothers from the schools here in Albany.
Carson O'Brien, Executive Director of ABC House, which is a child advocacy center for Lynn and Benton counties. Born and raised in Albany, and a teacher way back is how I started my career. So thankful to be tied to the district in a lot of familiar ways with family, and my dad sat on the school board, so very thankful for GAPS and happy to give back.
Janet Steele, president of the Albany Area Chamber for about 30 more days, I think. I retired in December after 30 years with the Chamber of Commerce too. My youngest son graduated from West. I've been very involved in various GAPS committees, early bonds, etc. So glad to be here.
Good evening, Patrick Richards, 3rd generation going through the Albany School District, Albany Schools, proud parent of 2 kids that were 4th generation going through Albany Schools. Sold our business back in, after selling a business back in 2012, volunteered some, and then I had the pleasure of being the athletic director of West Albany for 5 years. So happy to be here and in my experience.
We had one late arrival here.
One more.
Dick, what point is you, Mr. Purdue?
question. What am I supposed to say?
Who are you? And your connections to the
Who are you and what are you?
I'm a duck. Dick Purdue, retired CPA here in town, member of the Millersburg City Council.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you guys for doing that. Quote of the night is, last time we talked about Mr. Kennedy's quote. The quote of the night. Oh, we will introduce.
Sure, my name is J.L. Wilson. I own Nelson Research and Rushlight Research. I do research for school districts, local governments, industry groups.
Who's presenting tonight?
I'm Dave Bowen. I'm the Executive Director of Operations. I've lived in Albany for 30 years. I have a junior at West, and this is my 3rd year with the district.
Bruce Schmidt, Assistant Superintendent. This is my 2nd year in Albany, 2nd year with GAPS. It's been an awesome start. It's been amazing getting to know the schools, the community, students, and folks. And I'm happy to be here.
Susie Osborne, I'm the Executive Director of Human Resources. Both of my parents graduated from Albany Union. I'm a South Albany grad, and then I worked at West Albany as a teacher and coach and administrator for 38 years, and I'm finishing my career at the district office.
I'm Kelsey Costales Marshall. I'm the Executive Director of Equity, Diversity, and Inclusion. I've lived in Albany about 5 years. My husband graduated from West and bought a house here. I hope to have kids in the district someday.
Okay, we'll turn it over to Amy in just a minute. Quote of the night. Henry Kissinger wrote a book on China called On China. And he wrote that 2005, something like that, as we began to see the Soviet Union fade as our great rival. We began to see China come. So he said, hey, there's a lot of things you have to understand about China. In that book, he wrote, we must always continually distinguish between what is possible, ultimately, and what is possible in any given period of time, right? And so we are time-bound as we do this work. There will be complexity, there will be probably not enough to get everything, right? And so we are going to have to really think in terms of the long haul and how we can best position this district to move forward in our time as we execute these responsibilities, right? So we just ask that you guys stay 30,000, continue to learn things as we go forward, and then we will certainly put you through many an exercise because we know all of this, right? So thank you guys for sharing. I'll turn it over. Dave, you up?
Thank you. So tonight we're going to go through some survey results. We're also going to talk, we want to first actually confirm our guiding principles. We went through an exercise last time we met, and we want to just confirm the language. We did a little bit of wordsmithing for the final guiding principles, just to make sure we're still on par with what we decided. Then we will go through the survey results. They went and asked the community a series of questions, so we'll go through some of those and see how they affect our discussions. We will also go through the facility assessments and educational adequacy results. We won't go deep dive into them tonight. That's for December, and also your homework will be to read all of those reports, so then we come back in December with a lot of questions. But we'll just give you a briefer, an overall district review of what Greater Albany looks like as a whole, and then also show you how to read the reports as well. Then we'll have a little bit of a break and then a group exercise related to how to actually apply those guiding principles when you're making a decision. So it's not going to be a final decision tonight. It's more of an exercise on learning how to apply those guiding principles when we start making those decisions. So we won't make any final decisions tonight. We're actually going to start investigating next time in December. Okay? Does it make sense? So just a brief overview of our schedule. We are now in November. Our draft facility report, as we mentioned, is sitting over here on the table. You will get copies of those this evening. And then what we will do, we've got the next 6 sessions with you laid out at the first of every month. So Then this is just a reminder of those makeup sessions. If you miss a meeting, these are the dates that you will reach out to Chris to schedule those meetings if you would like a refresher. So these are laid out in the order of the number of dots received. So the first one was GAPS will be inclusive and focused on student success by providing equitable learning environments where learners feel empowered. So we just did a little bit of a word reassociation to make sure it read a little bit better. So inclusive and empowering. Every student will thrive in equitable learning environments that celebrate diversity and empower learners to succeed. Is everyone good with that language? If not, it's okay. We've got markers over here to modify. Okay. The second one mentioned GAPS will be good stewards of taxpayer dollars by maximizing available resources. So we have responsible stewards. We will maximize resources and ensure taxpayer dollars are used efficiently and transparently to support student success. Everyone good with that language? Okay. And the third, GAPS will be welcoming and safe for students, educators, and communities alike. So that turned into welcoming and safe environments. Every school will be a place where students, educators, and community members feel safe, supported, and valued. Is that good? GAPS will be flexible, adaptable, and agile, meeting the needs of today and the future. So flexible and future ready. We will remain agile and adaptable, evolving to meet the needs of today's learners and tomorrow's challenges. Okay. GAPS will be conducive to lifelong learning by providing for different learning and modalities. So lifelong learning centers, our schools will foster a love of learning through diverse, inclusive, and innovative educational approaches. Okay. Lastly, GAPS will be community focused because the school will reflect the values of the respective communities. So community focused, schools will reflect and honor the unique values, cultures, and aspirations of the communities they serve. Yep.
I was not here the last meeting, but I did have a chance to visit with Andy. My question, when I see this is more in relationship to, I guess, classroom interaction and make sure, but my belief is we're looking at facilities and we don't really have control over a lot of the items that were listed. This, to me, those are areas that the school board would be working to address. It's just a statement, just, okay?
In some cases, yes, like creating that community focused, creating that culture. The facilities in a certain way can help foster a culture. For example, if you have an entry feature, a lot of the schools do not have secured vestibules. So one of the things we would want to say is if we are adding secured vestibules, how do we make that still feel warming and welcoming and still be able to say we are still focusing our community values by making sure that we feel like we're welcoming our community into those spaces and still not feeling like they're
And I
locked
see
out.
that on some of those, but I don't see it with all of the ones that I've listed, just my personal opinion, okay?
Yep.
The only thing I would add when I was reading through these prior to coming, and I like your improved language, so that's really helpful. So thank you for going through that and wordsmithing that. Is that this table, I really remember a great discussion on how facilities can really create an environment that's uplifting and inspirational and really draws somebody to want to be there. And I'm good with all of our statements, they're all true, but I'm not left with something that evokes something inspirational. I don't know if there's something that we can do about that. Anyway, that was a thought that I had while I was reading.
Is there something maybe, either in the inclusive and empowering portion that
Yeah, I
might,
thought maybe 2 places, flexible and future ready and inclusive and empowering. I thought were 2 potential spots that something could be added there.
okay,
Just to add to that, part of it is we were talking about having spaces that speak value to a kid so they feel valued. And
Yeah.
like, so like that's the
That makes
building
more sense.
communicates the value of the kids that are within it.
okay,
Like, this is an important place.
Exactly, important is a good word, yeah.
okay. So that might be, I feel like that might be more of the inclusive and empowering, just so the students have, or feel like they're in a special place that reflects what their needs are. Is that something that we can kind of wordsmith on the first, Jonah's taking notes over there, that we can kind of come back and wordsmith some things, right? Okay.
Thank you.
Anyone else? Okay.
I guess I have a comment that, and I was not here, but I have had some feedback that schools ought to have a street appeal that also is inclusive and inviting. So I want to be in that building. That building's intriguing, that's of interest. The landscaping is nice, not overpowering, but it evokes, I'm proud of this building, I'm proud of why would I want to go there? So somehow, again, back to the inspiration.
Okay. I wonder if that is maybe part of the welcoming and safe environments piece, that we can add a little language about, this makes me feel like I really want to be here. Okay. So on that third.
I'm just taking notes for now.
Oh, okay.
We'll work on the background on
So
that.
yeah, so that third principle.
So one of the things I talk to the children about when I go to the schools for the FOA Mayor contest is we want you to bring your kids back here because you're proud of where you came from. You want to raise your family when you come back to visit grandma and grandpa. So the schools, should be a place of, this is where I learned. This is where my favorite teacher taught me, and I really like being here. So we're looking future ready, right? So being prepared for that person to come back from graduating college or having a job overseas and come back and visit grandma and grandpa and tell their kids, let's go look at my school, it's really awesome. We want them to be inspired to bring their children back here.
Okay. So overall, kind of that sense of inspiration, this is a great place to be, and I want to keep coming back. And I'm inspired to be here. There's a lot of cool things going on inside.
That Alex made me think about something that I wrote at the end of all of our letters that went out to families, particularly around attendance. But I wanted the kids and the families as well to know, but I always included at the end, our school is not the same without you. To let them know that we can't be who we are if you are not part of us. And so maybe that's kind of
this one, sort of reflecting the culture, bringing back the legacy of the grandparents. This is our school, this is our legacy.
Yeah.
Kind of piece on the community.
For this community, who's really steeped in.
Right.
roots and, yeah.
Thank you.
Great.
Any other comments or suggestions? Okay, good comments, thank you. All right, we'll have our survey presenter. Clicker for you.
Okay, my name is JL Wilson. I own a company called Nelson Research. Andy asked me to do some scoping work for this committee on your potential bond request. And I'm just gonna be direct with you about how this works and some of the things that I would want you to take away, because I've heard some of the previous discussion here. And I've had the opportunity to help a lot of districts with similar type projects. And the thing that I want you to remember is that most of the people who are going to decide yes or no on this have no connection to the district at all. And I know that you're speaking to a community that probably has very close relationships and very close emotional ties to the local schools. But when you think about who is going to show up on this election, the typical profile of the voter is going to have, is not going to have a kid in school, is going to be long since been out of school. It's going to be a 60 plus, in a lot of cases fixed income, and is really going to be looking first and foremost kind of a meat and potatoes assessment. And so I just want you to understand that, because it's very interesting, because you're speaking to the parents and to the kids and the people who are connected to the district, when the people making the decisions are not affiliated with any of those groups that we're connected to. So that's just one of the great ironies of trying to pass school bond measures. And I just want that to be in our thinking as we talk about how we make this saleable to the community. And it's a rather, you know, I survey a lot of districts. This is a pretty conservative community, and they're conservative fiscally. And so you've got that added layer, and I would say that added responsibility to make that make your sale appeal to those voters. And so that's just something I wanted to convey to you, just so I just felt like it needed to be said. So with respect to this survey, we fielded this in September 8th through 9th, okay, 8th, 9th, and the 11th. So we fielded this over 3 nights just after the Labor Day weekend. Survey sample size of 395. That'll get you a margin of error of about 4.9. That's very standard for these surveys. It's just not cost effective for us to get 600 sample. It just costs the district way too much, and you don't get that much added benefit with lowering your margin of error. So I typically advise clients to go with a margin of error of about 5%, which means we're talking to about 390 to 400 residents. That is scientifically what gets you to a margin of error of 5%. With a 95% confidence interval. We try to match up the community with who we think is going to be showing up at a May election or November election. We are not talking to the community writ large. We are talking to the people that you're going to ask to vote yes or no on a bond measure. So I need you to know that that's the audience that we're talking to when we conduct a survey like this. So we match it up with community demographics and what we think the voter profile is going to be. In most communities, it's going to be 51, 52, 53% female, larger, little slightly higher female proportion of the electorate. It's going to be slightly tilted 60 plus. Yes, I would say that the younger voters do tend to vote in November general elections, and you'll see a higher proportion. That becomes less in May elections, and less even further the further down a measure is on a ballot. And so that's why the survey sample on these surveys will tend to skew a little older, maybe 60 plus, into the 40 to 59 age range. But there's a reason why we survey a particular demographic. And so in this particular survey, our sample was actually about 40% 60 plus, 40% age 40 to 59, and about 20% between the ages of 18 and 39. Our sample had about 32% of our respondents had kids in school. So that will be a subgroup that will come through as the difference in responses based on whether the respondent had kids in school. We ask, of course, whether they own or rent their home. Political affiliation is always a big determinant. We tested this district at about R+2, R+2.5, which is where the district is. Half your voters are what we're calling the highest propensity voters. They're the ones that show up every election. We call them 4 of 4s, but 50% of our sample, they are showing up every election. We put a little higher weight on those because we do know that they'll show up every election, and then it's sort of a sliding scale. If you voted 3 out of 4 elections, it's about 20% of our electorate. 2 out of 4 elections, that's another 20%, and 1 of 4, the new voters, is about 10 or 11%. So just so you get a sense that who we talk to is fairly precise for this type of survey to give you the best view of the electorate that's going to actually vote on the proposal that you put forward. So that's going to look vastly different than if we just surveyed the community. We're actually surveying people that we expect to show up to vote. Okay. I think of this survey as sort of the top of the sales funnel. It was just a 30,000-foot view scope with just to start to draw some parameters around the discussion and start to set some expectations. I think it's important that you understand the perceptions of the district, because that will feed how people's attitudes going into mark a ballot response. The questions that we asked really to kind of suss that out, the main one is, do you feel that the district spends its money wisely or not? And we start to chart a course about people's attitudes about the district, so you need to understand current perceptions about the district. I got a unique assignment on this one to understand some topics, frequency, and medium of communication that GAPS could employ a communications program to start effectively talking to parents and the community. I think that's going to be essential as this, because I think that there's some ground that the district needs to make up to gain some community trust. So I was glad to see that, to understand how people want to receive their communications, what topics they're most interested in, and how frequently do people want those communications. So we did spend a little time on that. Understanding community priorities for potential bond projects. The thing that I often use to illustrate this is almost every survey I do, there's always a group of parents, and I have kids in sports too, so they're very passionate about the football team, the grandstands, the concessions, you get it, the track, and the idea is, do we include stuff like that? I would say 99 times out of 100, I have to usually convey the information that you probably can't. People don't love to fund that. You can sneak it in with something else, but if this is a main focus on what we're talking about, generally people don't want their tax dollars funding that. And that's only to illustrate that there's levels to this. There are things universally that people like to support. There are things that in language that gets used that cause people to have a more skeptical view of what you're presenting. And so you'll get a sense of that when we do a little community prioritization, although I will say most of the things that we were asked to talk about were fairly safe. And then understand basic cost sensitivity on a potential bond. The reason that this is important is because we can go through a series of questions where we ask somebody how they're going to vote, and let's just say it is 60-40 yes. And then we lead people through a series of things that are going to be included in the measure, the cost impacts, then we ask people how they're going to vote again. And let's just say it comes back, after, we call this the informed ballot, say it comes back 60-40 yes. And this measure wants to, say raise the tax by 10 cents per thousand or something modest. We typically ask some questions in there that ask people to assess their own personal economics. Because the thing that you've got to understand is people will make determinations on this measure they might love GAPS. They might love all of you, everything they do, they support it totally, but their own personal economies won't allow them to support something additional. And I've always found that those questions are actually much, much more telling than asking people how they're going to vote. So we start asking those questions early to get price sensitivity, and so that you get a sense of, do you really think the community is willing to add more to the pot than what they're currently paying? That's a very important sentiment to be able to capture, and so we try to do that at least in the early scoping. So I'm just going to go over some basic numbers with respect to right track, wrong track. I think that this is a better question to ask than, do you think that the district is performing well? And so you see, as we stand right now, right track at about 23.5%, wrong direction 31.9%. The reality is most people just don't know. And I honestly, and I've told this to Andy, is I would not get too high centered on the fact that it looks to be 8 points upside down. The reality is most districts that we survey, that number is upside down, and oftentimes it's upside down significantly. So what I look at is that actually most people don't know, and you've got an opportunity to shape opinion with a concerted communications effort. So I'm just going to tell you that I wouldn't get too bummed about that number. What I would look at is the opportunity that most people just don't know what that presents, because I think it allows you to shape opinion. This is the one that I think has to be addressed. And this is, do you believe the school district spends the money it receives wisely? This question is going to be your biggest determinant of success, ultimately. 'Cause when you capture who this demographic is, that is no, and I can tell you exactly who that demographic is. But it's largely going to be, you'll be surprised to know, it's people with kids in school are driving this number. It's a combination. I always look in the survey, where are the independents aligned? Are they aligned more with Republicans, or are they aligned more with Democrats? In this community, or this question, they're aligned more with Republicans on this answer, which is why there is a little bit of a deficit here. This is largely going to come from what I say, consider the kind of the working class demographic, which is kind of age 40 to 59 in prime earning years. I would say mostly not having kids in school, but to me, this is the number that probably has to be addressed. Does the district spend its money wisely, and what do we do to get this number up? Because this is going to be a determining factor in some of the questions we ask down the line. But I just flag that. And again, keep in mind, 43%, a plurality, still unsure. You have the opportunity to shape opinion here. Here's where I think there is opportunity for the district. How interested are you in receiving progress updates? I was actually shocked that you had a majority of the community actually wanting to hear from the district. That's wonderful. How do people prefer to receive the information? You can see it is through numerous channels, but the biggest being email updates. You had a good 20% chunk all in either the district or school website, district or school letter, and some amount of social media. How often would you want to receive information? 30% want monthly, another 14 want quarterly, another 13 want major updates when they occur. I think that there's room here to work to start a communications cadence with the community that allows you to communicate some things to, again, gain trust in the district. What topics are you most interested in receiving information about? I think there was general interest on just about everything except for what we're doing tonight. But you had 50% plus on I think just general human interest topics that affect students and staff, financial information. I think these are the big two. I think both of those go a long way to gaining community trust. I also think it's important to highlight student achievement in things that are working, obviously. Here is where I think that there is tremendous opportunity for the district, and that is talking about the 2017 bond. A lot of things that folks do is you don't talk about the success you had. People have to be reminded that, oh yeah, we did pass this measure, things worked out great, the schools got built, everything was done on time, it was done on budget. Remind the community that you actually have a track record of successfully executing on these things, and you will start to see sentiment about the district increase, particularly as it relates to attitudes about spending money wisely. The fact that 54% of the respondents, without prompting, felt that they got a good value for the 2017 bond, I would invite you to start to replay some greatest hits on that to remind people that, hey, we did it before, it worked out great. So this is just some, I would say, some very general scoping on priorities with respect to potential projects. And I would say most of this is meat and potatoes. And so this was a limited list. Some surveys we will do 10 or 15, and I'll just give you my general sense of things. Anything that kind of goes north of 60%, especially when it's, you know, so here's how to read this. We give people a priority scale, 1 through 5. And the only number I'm really interested in is 5. And because that's where I want to see that people cared enough to say this was the highest priority. I really don't care about all the other numbers. I care secondarily about 4, because people will have at least a positive attitude that sort of correlates with the high intensity. Obviously, the highest amount of intensity was around things related to safety and security upgrades. That's not always the case in districts, but it was certainly the case here. And you had a number of these items, and I just call it the meat and potatoes. Whenever you're talking about protecting the useful life of buildings, protecting the community's investment that you've made in these buildings for all these years, and making the learning spaces good for kids, typically that's going to get pretty high marks. So I typically think anything north of 60% is in the safe zone. I think anything between 50 and 60, you know, I don't love it, but I would say there's probably some room for it. Anything under 50, I really tend to shy away from. My personal experience is that a proposal is typically only as strong as its weakest link. And so if you have something in there that you know you're kind of playing with fire, we can go about it a couple of ways. One is you slide it in, you just don't talk about it. But you know, the other, if you really do talk about it and you know make it part of the deal, just understand that people kind of look for reasons to vote no. And sometimes if you give them a reason, and I'm not saying elementary playgrounds are that reason to vote no. I'm just saying it didn't rank too well as a priority. I'm not saying that there's not room for that, because at the end of the day, do people would people really vote no because they don't want play? Probably not. You could probably include it. Just understand that as we go through this process and start to narrow down and get a little more specific about projects that we want to test, if they're coming in under 50, I would really advise you to think hard about whether that should be included. But as you can see, most of this, and I call it the meat and potatoes stuff, most of it does all right. Okay, so this is the question. There's 2 questions that I typically like to ask back to back in these types of scoping surveys, just to give me a sense of the community's, the collection of the voters and their personal economies. Do they feel like they can pay more? That's what I want, because I want to know how much bandwidth you have to ask for more. Whether this is getting characterized as a renewal, that's one thing, or whether this is being characterized as something where we're asking the community to do a little more. So we take care of this question, and let me get the precise wording of the question. If Greater Albany Public Schools ask taxpayers for a bond measure to make needed repairs and improvements to school buildings without increasing property taxes, I would support the measure. Agree or disagree? And the agreement on the measure is over 68%. I tend to think you're in the safe zone if you're able to frame this as a bond renewal. That number to me does not give me any pause at all. And so if this is an issue of trying to create something with a bond that's coming off the books and you've got some available space to work, I don't think you're going to have too great a concern with the community on what you include, because even people who did not think the district spent its money well still would support this. So there's a little bit of a safe space. This is the question, though, I'm guessing you're all more interested in, which is, in this economy, I would not be able to afford an increase in my property taxes to fund school repairs and improvements. This is sort of the, we frame the question this way because we don't want to put people on the spot about, do you support the district, don't you support the kids? It's really about, listen, this is my own personal economics. You don't have to feel bad about whether you agree or disagree. This 47 number is danger zone. And the fact that only 37% disagree is danger zone. So what you get from that number is, what's that, 84%? So you got about 16% who don't know. I'm going to just tell you right now, most of that 16% is going to end up going into the agree. I don't think at this point in time, I would tread very, very cautiously about doing something to increase the rate, or the tax rate. I'm not saying it's impossible. That 47 is not 57 and it's not 51. It's not a majority. And I will say in a lot of these surveys, it's just dead on arrival. If that number is over 50%, there's just no chance I'm recommending to you to put something out that costs additional. If it's under 50 and kind of mid to high 40s, I would say be cautious. The chances are it's not gonna land well, but you know, there's some gray area. I would just give you a word of caution just based on this feedback. I do think you can affect that number. I do think you can bring it down. I think changing people's sentiment about how they perceive the district and whether they trust the district and how it spends money can affect that number and can bring it down. You also have the possibility that economies do improve and people start to feel like they have breathing room. So this number is not in stone, it's a fluid number, but just, you know, I think the idea was, you know, in this moment, what's the attitude? It's really, really cautious on that front. And so I would really urge you to tread lightly. And so I think that's it.
I have a question.
Yes, sir.
So the question, as I recall, and we can give you guys the whole survey, because you did some follow-up, is that correct? There were some follow-up questions like what was the reason?
Yeah, we did some open-ended or verbatims on that, yeah.
Like on the right track, wrong track, one of the things we fight is public education everywhere, public education in Oregon, maybe a little bit here, but you had teased that out, didn't you, a little bit? That there were things like teaching the wrong curriculum, blah, blah, blah.
That's right. And I would say that there was nothing, I would say, in our open-ended responses that really stood out to me. I'd have to re-review those, Andy, but there was nothing in our particular verbatims that felt, wow, this was unique to this district that needed to be addressed. I have to say, I've seen it all. The responses all kind of start to look the same district to district, because you've got people who are discontent for all the reasons that we all know. Yeah.
This is mostly deferred maintenance, right? You called it meat and potatoes, but a lot of those top items were deferred maintenance. And I've heard from some polling firms that they think you should sprinkle in both deferred maintenance and fancy flashy. What's your take on that? And do you feel pretty solid about these numbers, given that it's just taking care of existing facilities?
Do I feel solid about them right now? I certainly do. Yeah.
What about the flashy and new?
Okay, so I'm gonna give you my most recent project, because to me, the recent and new can happen. It's going to be in the execution of the campaign. You know, if we run a campaign, and I've noticed that even when I don't like to get too in the wheel on things I've done, but I will call out Chemeketa Community College. Okay, we just did this one. We basically, it was a failed effort, and they asked me to come in and do that and run the campaign, and then we ended up winning. And the thing that was most obvious to me is that it looked like a Santa's wish list. of things that the district said that they were gonna do, all under the auspices of a bond renewal. And of course, we could argue in the strangely, when you do that, your top argument should be, I know you want to talk about all the great things you're doing, your top argument should actually be it's not going to cost you anything more. And then you talk about the other stuff. But strangely, they turned it into this wish list of things and then didn't even mention the fact that it was not going to be in addition to the tax rate. So what we did is, I'm just gonna be honest with you guys. When they talk about student health and wellness centers and stuff like that, I'm sorry, your typical voter looks at that and goes, "What are we talking about here?" Yeah. We didn't even talk about it. Was it included in the measure? Absolutely, it was included in the measure. But we talked about the other elements. We talked about it was going to supplement career and technical education. It was going to improve learning spaces. It was going to do kind of a very narrow band of things. Because remember, in the course of a campaign, repetition is key. You can't talk about 100 things, because if you're talking about 100 things, people get lost and they just assume that you want the world. And so what we're going to talk about is 2 or 3 things, and we're going to talk about them until we're sick about talking about them. And so that's how I would thinking about it. So does it accommodate what you're talking about, sort of the new and flashy? Yes, but it's in the execution of the campaign where that comes through.
So I have a
Yes,
question.
sir.
On that last slide that you talked about, I would not be able to afford an increase my price. There were 16% that weren't yes or no. Were they just, I don't know?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, we give people an out to say they're unsure. I can just say from experience that most of those people break to the negative.
Yeah, so if you convinced half those people, you'd flip-flop those 2 columns.
You could.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that's what I'm saying. Those numbers aren't calcified. I mean, that you have an opportunity to affect what those numbers are. Yeah.
But today
it is. Yeah. Mm-hmm. And some communities, you know, I just make a personal judgment sometimes whether I think a district is just really dug in, or whether it's fluid. My own assessment of this district is probably a little more fluid. Anything more?
So
Yes,
just
sir.
a couple things. You high graded, and you're presenting not the full survey. We will get you the whole survey, which includes more detailed responses. And we'll send that out via email.
Yeah, I've already taken up too much time, but it's just on the few. But I thought that those were the high points.
Yeah, that was great. Well, let's give him a hand. Thank you, Jeff.
You're welcome.
Okay. So the rest of the evening, we're gonna start talking about data and data collection. So that's this area number 2, analyze. We've been spending a lot of time this summer and this fall analyzing a lot of the data that we've received, and we've interviewed principals, we've interviewed district staff, walked the buildings, looked at the ODE's facility assessments that they did last year and the beginning of this year, and compared them to what we saw. We had our cost estimator review any updates to those numbers as well. So there were some minor discrepancies, but we wanted to make sure that we at least have those numbers identified. So our numbers are going to be slightly different than the ODE facility assessments that were received. So that's mostly based on what we normally would see in K-12 schools for modern education facilities. So there are 6 things that the long-range facility plan has to include, and those are the review of the population projections, collaboration with local planning agencies, evidence of community engagement, this is part of that, identify any facilities on the historic registry, confirm educational adequacy of each school, and then identify changes needed to meet those adequacy standards. So tonight, the red, these 2 arrows, those are the 2 things we'll talk through. The yellow, those things we will talk through next week. We do have another guest speaker coming in who will go through their projections of population growth over the next 10 years or so. And so that will be reviewed with his numbers as well as with our capacity analysis for each of the schools. And then we'll also look at, we'll have quite a few minutes spent on trying to come up with, now that we've looked at the data, what do we want to do with it? So, but tonight we'll talk about the ages and the adequacy as well as the facility assessments of each of the sites.
I get to present really fun information, guys, so bear with me. So like Amy said, we spent a lot of time poring over the ODE assessment, dollars, the Veritas reports. We visited the sites. So we will kind of go briefly through some of the steps and those pieces that we have to produce as part of that report. So first one you'll see here, this is just a basic chart for all of your schools and their ages. And so within the reports that you receive, there'll be little snippets of each one for each school. You can see, obviously, when they were built, Central, all the way back in 1915, a long time ago, 110 years old. And then we have some more of our, newer schools, Albany Options, Timber Ridge, etc. The little saws on there are a major renovation or addition to that building. The little beige squares, those are like minor, think restrooms or maybe an interior remodel, something small. And so you can kind of see there really wasn't a lot done until the last, you can see the 96 bond and then the 2017 bond. So you can kind of see where a lot of that work has kind of clustered around those areas. And you can also, there's a lot of things you could probably gain from this. Obviously our average age, buildings were built in 1970, so over, 55 years old. And, we just have a few of the data points here. Average age or anything over 50 years old is really close to that age. So quite a few buildings within that time frame. And Amy mentioned the historic preservation part, and that 50-year timeline or 50 years or older timeline is really just whether it doesn't necessarily mean it is a historic building that is worth preserving and all this great things. We just have to recognize that it's over 50 years old. So do the SHPO.
SHPO is a state process that we have to go through. A lot of times it's really just saying the changes we're making aren't significant to the history of the building, especially if you're doing an interior renovation. They're mostly concerned with the exterior of the building. So if we're doing window replacements, we would do those in kind so that they don't affect the look of the building. And so those are the kind of things that the state program has us prove to them that we're not changing the quality of the building if it's 50 years or older.
Thank you. All right. Then we started looking at the repair dollars, and I'm going to say repair is a very key component to all of this. It's explicitly looking at each one of the buildings and looking at what things are needed, items that are either like obviously worn and torn, need to be replaced, such as like fire alarm systems. A lot of times they have kind of a timeline that they need to be replaced, or things that aren't functional or things that aren't working well. And so you can see out of all of those repairs, you do have a lot of schools. You're looking at $148.7 million worth of just repairs. And that's just to bring whatever that item is up to basically a working standard or a new standard. There's a lot of dollars. And then the chart on the side obviously is just breaking that into those separate components. So we just bundled all of those dollars into categories so we could try to glean some sort of understanding of where your dollars are landing, like what is most crucial or where the big ticket items are. And obviously interiors stands out. On our way here, I was trying to think, I was like, how do we explain interiors being like this huge chunk of money? You're like, come on. But really, there's a lot of surfaces and a lot of things in each school that kind of piles into, right? It's one of our biggest categories. We're talking flooring, walls, paint, all those kind of things, interior doors, all that kind of stuff. So it does create a big bucket. Obviously, we can go through all of these, but you do have equipment and furnishings. That's a big one. You're thinking casework. A lot of the dollars were kitchen equipment. There's a few schools where kitchen equipment was like a big dollar amount. But we're talking, you know, basketball hoops, those kind of things as well fall into that. A few of the things that we've found crucial, obviously facades. That includes exterior cladding, windows, stuff like that, stuff that's failing, or for example, windows that are single pane. There's a lot of schools that still have single pane windows, so all that heat and everything is going right out those windows. Roofing is a big one. I know there's quite a handful of schools that are looking at like a full roof replacement. Those are big dollar items for individual schools that are tough for the facilities team to really tackle under budget, you know, the actual district dollars. HVAC, obviously that's a big one. And electrical, that includes lighting replacements. There's a lot of lights that are still fluorescent and not LEDs. So those are not quite to today's standards. Yeah.
I just noticed the electrical doesn't seem to match up on the two sides.
I think we're combining the electrical and the electrical system. It's just.
Got it.
And the difference with that is more like speakers, fire alarms, and all this. It's really electrical. Yeah.
For the HVAC repairs, does that include installing air conditioning into all schools that you have?
No, but we will get to that. And that's why that repair nomenclature is really important here, because it literally is just repairing what you have now. Yeah.
I know that all the buildings that are listed are schools that we are actively using as educational spaces, but how come when we're looking at the whole facility plan, we're not looking at all of our buildings?
We do have the facility assessments for the district facilities. The ODE does not, since the bond dollars don't go towards charter school renovations, and then also because we don't necessarily see a big conversation that goes out to the community about upgrading district facilities, because the last bond, there was quite a bit of money spent on upgrading district facilities. We just went ahead and kept with those same numbers that ODE presented. We wanted to focus more of our energy on the educational spaces that the district bond dollars would go towards. Does that make sense? We can you still have those numbers from the ODE assessments for those district facilities, so that can be included as well.
So would we say that none of the bond dollars that we might be asking for would be going to any other building except for the ones that we are currently using as educational spaces, or is it?
Not necessarily. Okay. It's more about messaging. So as the researcher was just mentioning, is like you can still talk about, you know, those big 3 items, but there's also pieces in there that usually get earmarked for other facilities that have a need. It's just more of the messaging piece behind it for the community to get behind.
So that makes big, like, Fairmount and Grove schools are not on the list. Did you assess them?
We did not assess those. We do have the ODE numbers for their assessments.
Yeah. All right, any other questions? So lots of dollars, lots of amounts, lots of repairs, really. And we'll come back to that HVAC comment here in a second. I have a later slide. We then take those repair dollars and then we take a replacement value that was given by the ODE reports, the Veritas reports, of how much repairs are in comparison to what it would take to replace that entire building. And so we look at the replacement cost, and by the way, that's cost per square foot. They just do a blanket cost per square foot because that's the easiest way to analyze that. And we come up with what's called an FCI number, so the overall. And that gives us a percentage, basically, of how to rate the buildings. What is their real condition? And so you can see the colors on the far side. That's just a gradient of rating those percentages, the FCI percentages rating. And realistically, you want to, sorry, I'm losing my words, gosh. We want to pinpoint the buildings. You're like, there are so many repairs to this building. Is it really worth repairing? That's really what we're going for. And so we look at that 0 to 5%, good condition, minor work. So you can see a lot of your newer schools. Obviously, those schools were recently built, stuff's in good shape. And then 5 to 10, we consider that fair condition. So there's work that needs to be done. 10 to 30, poor condition. So there's pretty significant repairs that are needed to that building. And then 30% and above is really anything that is a really high potential for replacement. Like, there's a lot going on in this building. And so you can see we really only have one building at this point, and this is just based on the repair versus replacement dollars. There's a lot of other things that we could talk about that go into this, but North Albany Elementary is really one that we're sitting at 45% at this point. So, and you can see, there's other buildings. We got Central, Taquina, Tangent. There's a few of those that are still pretty high up on the list there. Any questions about FCF? All right. I didn't explain it very well. I apologize. So then, speaking of cooling, so we also asked, we have a cost estimator on board that's is helping us kind of come up with some dollar amounts, just to kind of ballpark things a little bit. One of the significant things that we've noticed is the lack of cooling in the majority of the schools. And so we asked him to give us a ballpark number for what it would be to actually install cooling in each one of these buildings. And so you can see that in the blue all throughout there. And we just combined the repair plus cooling dollars, just for comparison's sake. So you can see we start getting what happens if we took the FCI, which is a repair-based number, and we added that, the cooling dollars into there. Really, we're looking at red almost in every school, to be honest. It's a pretty significant dollar amount. So, we're, Amy and I were looking at it yesterday, and we're like, it literally is like your repair dollars. It could be 5 million. And then your HVAC is about 5 million. So we're almost doubling those amounts, those repair dollars in each one of those schools. So like I said, we just wanted to split out the cooling just so, because it's not a repair thing, it is in addition to.
So that totals, just to add cooling, is 115.7 million. So if we did nothing else but add cooling, that's it's a big undertaking. So just wanted to make sure that everybody got to see that dollar amount. It's a big dollar amount. All right.
Just as important as the facility assessments and FCI is the educational adequacy of each facility, of the learning environments in particular. So how does the physical facility support teaching and learning, and how are they a barrier towards that? And so as part of that, ODE has some very loose criteria related to that. They have the 5 kind of characteristics up there: acoustics and noise, air quality, lighting, temperature, school capacity, and classroom space. And there's not really a prescribed template to base that information off of. So we've developed a template to kind of look at that and figure out a way to consolidate everything we've learned about each individual facility and kind of score it and rank it. That way you can kind of get a comparative scale from an educational adequacy standpoint. In doing that, we met with all the principals from each site, including Jody, thank you, and kind of talked through over the course of an hour to 90 minutes, just a bunch of criteria, asking questions, very open-ended questions to get that information, and then kind of scoring it and ranking it. Those top 5, we kind of think of those as really a baseline. It's if I'm uncomfortable, from a temperature standpoint, I'm not going to learn as well, right? Is the room large enough, to accommodate, educational learning in that space? In addition to that, we look at other standards that go beyond the ODE prescribed. So curriculum supports, professional development, safety and security. If I don't feel safe in my learning environment, I'm not going to learn as well. So we wanted to look at that as well. Everybody should have printouts of kind of all of the backup information here. But this is really kind of the roll-up of all the current facilities that are being used for education, and an understanding of kind of how they score. The one thing that you'll see on that second line there, the air quality, educational adequacy, pretty consistent lower score. And the reason for that is ODE does have prescriptive requirements for that. Does it have CO2 sensors? And then is there an air quality management plan? So CO2 sensors, you could see, really brought up the score for Meadow Ridge and Oak Grove. But everywhere else, where you don't have those, that's kind of what brings that score down. So that one's a little bit of an anomaly, to be honest, from our perspective, but that's just kind of where that shakes out. If you look at all the scores and kind of how they ranked, you can see in the red arrows down here, you know, from an educational adequacy standpoint, what looked on the lower scale. You know, we've got some you know, getting lower on South Albany High School, South Shore Elementary School, Oak Elementary School, and North Albany Nays there in Central Elementary School. So that's kind of how that shakes out. If as part of your homework for the next meeting, yes.
Did you separate out West Albany new and old?
No, we consolidated it.
It should be separated.
Right. Similar with South Albany High School, you know, because there's multiple buildings, right?
Well, but they were all built at the same time. Those that were constructed at different times in a facility, right? Should, you know, if they were built at different times, I think they should be evaluated separately.
We can pull those numbers apart. We looked at separating them out.
Two separate timeframes that were
Yes.
constructed too.
Yeah.
So I think that
We did look at separating them out. Some of the questions or criteria were like, how is your gym? Or how is your performing arts spaces? So it would have to be,
okay.
It was a little bit unusual way to separate them out. We'd have to probably have we'd have a bunch of zeros on the new building as well as the old building, because the new building doesn't have general education classrooms and the old building doesn't have any performing arts or they have some athletics, but it's a little bit, we could try separating it out and showing you that next time.
That would be.
Yeah.
I guess that's a good point, maybe on some of the other sides too, but when you look at some of your metrics, you got lighting and educational adequacy, and you're looking at your temperature, educational adequacy. Again, just speaking for West, most of the education happens in the old building.
Right.
That's where the classrooms are.
Right.
That's where there's the lighting and the heating, and the new section is, you know, admin, some classroom space, but that's the bulk. So I guess that's a good, to Doris's point, it's like on some of these where we've been adding on over time, you know, we've changed some things, but I think it can appeal them apart, because those are also gonna be your high dollar spots. So I also think there's a way to go back and kind of do a second dig at some of these and say, hey, let's peel out the 1952 building from the 2017 building.
I was wondering about, I'm looking at the total percentage scores along the bottom.
Yep.
And I'm noticing that Calipuya does not have a red arrow. Can you explain, given it's 63%, how that one doesn't have a red arrow?
Sorry,
What
which?
is the criteria that pointed out?
Oh, this one here? Yeah.
Oh, Calipuya.
Yeah,
Gotcha.
it should get,
It
this
should
one
have
had
a red arrow,
62. You're correct, yes.
Okay.
Yep. Any other thoughts, feedback on this, or just kind of the overall approach there? And again, this is just one of the metrics used in a long-range facility plan to get a sense for that. What you'll see a lot of times is these actually parallel pretty well with the facility conditions, because they are based on physical conditions of the facility. So you'll see that kind of a lot there. There was some common themes when we looked at educational adequacy and facility assessments throughout the district. Some of those are probably not a big surprise for most folks. You know, playfields and playgrounds, kind of a common challenge, you know, with some of them not having well water, some of them having bowls and moles and, you know, being trip hazards. Cooling is a consistent theme throughout the district, outside of, you know, buildings that have received cooling and outside of the newer buildings there. Single pane windows, again, that contributes quite a bit to the heat gain and to the heat loss as well. Middle school finishes, that one was, you know, everything from the tectum panel up high to the flooring. We kind of saw some challenges there. Secure vestibules, again, you see those at the newer facilities. You see it at West Albany, you see it at Timber Ridge, and Meadow Ridge there. But you don't see it district-wide. There's more of a buzzer kind of configuration. So that's just an observation there. Student services, limited space, from conference meeting space for itinerant office space, for if I've got somebody coming into the school, pushing in for services, there's limited space for meeting there. Acoustic conditions in gyms and operable partitions, we see some of that, especially in schools like, I think Takina and, the three prototypes, kind of the separation of acoustics between those classrooms. Covered play structures at middle schools or lack thereof was one of the observations. Bus drop-off zones and parent drop-off either not being separated or just inadequate, from a queuing standpoint. Older schools' ability to provide for special programs, ADA compliance issues, and this one here, I think we mentioned it last time, but Bureau Veritas, who did the initial facility assessment, the statewide assessment, they also did an ADA compliance assessment where they went through and they did a push-pull test on every single door, understood the cross slope of sidewalks and approach of the buildings and things like that. So, there's pretty robust reports for each school for that to get a good understanding there. And then just inadequate parking, some of them not well lit. So kind of some common themes that we saw district-wide. Anything to add there? Or any questions from the group?
These are not in order of importance, they're just observations. So you were handed out all of the draft reports for each of the schools that we analyzed. So one of the things you'll see on top at the green bars across, those are sort of the statistics of the school, the age, the number of students enrolled, number of buildings, parking, acreage. And then at the bottom, we start to look at main bullet points of concern. This is also from the interviews as well as from our site observations and the other reports that have been done so far. And then the next couple of pages, this goes through how the school is being used. This helps with a capacity analysis that we'll talk through next week or next time we meet as well. And then just key components of what is going on with those buildings in terms of their repair costs and adequacy issues. And then safety and security as well, just noting those issues that you probably want to address pretty quickly. And then accessibility notes, how many issues are you going to have meeting and bringing this school up to accessibility standards? And then the educational adequacy, as Jonah mentioned, this gets into more of the specific pieces for each of the schools to show where their discrepancies are higher or lower in those different categories. And then this last piece is going back through the different costs and how it's broken.
Back to the slide before, please. So when you're looking at your adequacies, some of those, what's it I was looking at that I didn't think fit? Yeah. Curriculum support adequacy.
The educational adequacy piece, too?
Number 6. To your right there.
Mm-hmm.
How does that fit in under facility? I see where the others fit.
This is under educational adequacy. So this header here is the chart that Jonah just went through. So we talked through, do your classrooms have the right technology? Do your science classrooms?
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
And then this goes through and breaks down those facility, those FCI numbers, where it might be spent in each of these schools. So it's color-coded and talks about where, electrical, mechanical, fire alarm, all of those pieces are color-coded, what's most important from the facility assessment needs in particular. And then just showing some of the photos of the school to highlight some of the bigger concerns. And then, any questions on these? This is more just how to read the report. And then once we kind of get into the next exercise, you'll see how we go through that. Dave?
So before we take a break, there's a letter in your packet that you all have. It's an invitation for you to visit some schools. It's an optional activity for you. It's not necessary, but it give us an opportunity to get in the buildings and see them and walk through them. If you have an interest in going to some of the buildings, I take you on a little bit of a tour. So here's the dates that we have. I've just kind of selected schools that were closer together so we can get to them. If you have interest in going to all three or just one of them, and then when we come back and have our discussions, there'll probably be somebody at your table that's either been at that school to provide some more context to the process that we'll go through later this spring. So that's kind of the schedule. Chris Green will send you out an email link to sign up for those visitations. The ones in yellow are during the school days, so we're gonna limit those to about 6 people. And then the ones in the blue are after school in the evenings, and all of you can come on that if you want to. So that's kind of what I've set up, and if I'm not there, Lauren, our facilities director will be there, or we might both be there, but at least one of us will be there to take you on a tour. We'll start at the first school, and then we'll just progress to the next schools on the list. So, and then if there's somebody in February 12th and 25th, if there's some school at that point that you want to go see, you reach out to me and we'll make individual appointments to go and see that site and tour that school. So I just think there's a lot of value in getting in and seeing. I love the pictures that are on the assessment reports, those help a lot, but also walking the buildings and seeing them. When we did this process with facility assessments, when you walk from one building that's brand new and then you walk to North Albany Elementary School, things stand out to you. Right? So, just an opportunity for you.
I did have a question that was running around in my head about infrastructure as far as roads within out of city property, right? So is that being captured in this anywhere?
We just looked at facility property. So when we talk about bus parking and that kind of thing, it's mostly like, do you have bus parking on site or not? Do you have enough room? And a lot of the schools use the city streets for a bus drop off and parent drop off. But is your question about, are we looking at maintaining facility or city property, sidewalk?
No, not city property. When you turn into the school, the parking lots and those kinds of, that factored in this as well?
Yes. So a lot of the site costs are talking about repairing and repaving. When we get into, do we want to add a bus lane to the site that doesn't have one? That's where we get into the proposed costs for a wants instead of a needs. So the facility assessments is more about the need in terms of facility repair and maintenance. And then when we talk about how we address, we would like to put new parking here, we would like to put a new bus lane, that's more of the next phase of cost estimating of getting that added benefit of new work going in.
Having gone through this process before, 11 years ago, and walking through a lot of the buildings, I just want to reemphasize what Dave said. That is very significant. It adds a huge difference in your perspective instead of seeing it in a picture or in data on a piece of paper.
Yeah, so one of the things we were a little surprised about the number, for example, the FCI for Central versus NAYS rather. There's a big discrepancy, but to make NAYS ADA accessible and Central ADA accessible will take a lot of energy and dollars. And so NAYS numbers jumped up a lot because you would almost have to redo the entire administration wing. And then a lot of the school classrooms don't have bathrooms within the buildings. They have to go outside and around to another building. So there's a lot of costs that just bring those up to ADA standards. So that's what's kind of interesting when you get to see the facilities, you can understand how, if I'm in a wheelchair, would I get from point A to point B? That's a big dollar amount to be able to modify that. Okay, yep.
Will we see any data on like what we have already invested into Central, like in the last 10 years?
We could try to pull that information for you, yeah. We've got the previous list of the critical facility upgrades that they did in the last bond, so we can pull that together for you.
Just one thing to go back to this, I think we're about to go on break.
Yes.
Right, and so what we pulled on was, it seems like fairly mundane stuff. We did look at all of the surveys that were done prior to this one. So we did 2 in 2016, I believe, prior to the last election. We did not put new projects in there because this district or this committee would decide on new projects. We weren't going to throw in things that we thought, hey, this might be a great idea for new one, we'll pull that. That could be done later. JL is available on very short notice. Like as we begin to think about projects or whatever, we can pull on possible new construction. We wanted a general sense of the district, not testing different new construction projects. Does that make sense? We did not want to leave that with 2 or 3 people coming up with ideas for what might be great.
So we'll take a little bit of break, 5 minutes or so. We'll set up some the exercise on your tables and be back here at 7:33. So we're going to give everybody about 30 minutes to kind of talk through what you heard. I know there's a lot of information that was out there. So they've got a couple of pieces of paper here that you can write on, but I'm going to borrow this for sticky. So what the goal for this exercise is to kind of learn how to use our guiding principles in talking through some of the bullet points that you've seen today on different issues that we've seen at schools. That's why you've got the reports as well. You can kind of go through, but it's really what we talked about, how to make sure that whenever we make decisions, we're seeing, does it reflect a guiding principle that we've already established? So how to use those bumper rails to make sure that we're making good decisions. So what you've got also is a map of the district, and each of the schools has their different measuring, facility assessments, enrollment. So this first portion is enrollment, capacity, it's capacity, then it's enrollment, then it's FCI, and then it's educational adequacy.
So what was that yellow one?
This yellow one here is the FCI. So that's on the bottom here as well. It kind of talks through what each of the different things. So if it's in red, it was either an orange or a red in the previous charts that you saw. If it's a yellow, it was a yellow in the previous chart, and then if it's a green, it was green in the previous charts as well. So green is good, red is not so good. So you've got extra paper here. You can kind of write down some notes or have discussions about what you've heard in the last data drop kind of thing, and then see how any of those items that might come up, how do they address being inclusive and empowering? What kind of things can we do to these schools to address those guiding principles? Does that make sense? So each table has a different guiding principle. So this one in particular is how do we
So we're using this for our captain as well. Yes.
What a map.
Yes.
So in 30 minutes, we'll have teams report back out. So write on the papers, and then we'll have you come up and post papers, and then talk through it. Questions?
I talk for a living.
Are you going? All right, excellent, go for it.
As a past school board member, I've been in Which there is a school.
There you go.
Each group assign
Really
someone
honestly,
to
with the responsibility.
Want to go first? Ready? Okay. Make sure you've got a person presenting, identified. Okay, now, yes, you can use this, stick it on the paper. One stick up there. Stick on the paper.
Good job, guys.
Tell me when I can talk.
All right.
Everybody ready?
No.
My son was just in Chandler. No, not Chandler, Goodyear.
Great. Go ahead.
All right, well, one of the things that we did talk about, which you couldn't really tell from the map there, was the inadequate safety at entrances. But then from that, looking at the map and is that a key? I'm not sure. We noticed a correlation between being at capacity or over capacity and educational outcome, as well as the lower the FCI, the more negatively the educational outcomes seem to be affected. Not in all cases, but in quite a few. So that's what we got.
Great.
Who'd like to go next? Okay.
Great.
You want to?
Okay. So what we noticed is that we built new schools as our community grew, so we were responding to the needs. Oh, I guess the first thing, so community focus was our section. And then also, when you look at how condensed our school population is, there's no way that we're meeting all the needs of the entire community when our schools are glommed together in one major section apart from the new ones that are on the outskirts. And then we noted that there's a lot of schools that need some repair, but that actually that also wasn't one group of folks, like in terms of like title schools, like there was a mix throughout that as well. So, yeah.
Would like to go next?
I guess since we're next, we'll go next. We had flexible and future ready. So we just took the tack of not getting into the specifics of taking a larger view, saying if we're going to stay adaptable for the future, say, okay, what are just the basic needs that need to be addressed across the board? And that would be environmental, air quality, we talk about safety, we talk about all those kind of things. With that being in mind, that really, you look at the total inventory of facilities that the district currently has, it's got a lot of nice inventory. Just a matter of, what needs to be upgraded to take care of those. And then also talking about any major, either whether they're new or any major changes to the structures, talk about what are their basic grade level requirements for, I would think, for each, elementary, middle school, high school. What are the basic needs in each one of those? And so when we move forward to do things, how do we work within that structure? Because the delivery, maybe what the latest and greatest theory on education, that changes from time to time. And we've seen that over years, with how spaces are used. But how do we create, when we make an investment, how do we get spaces that can be used multiple ways, or maybe can change over time? The regular, you take a house for an example, you got a bathroom, you got a kitchen, you got a living room, you got a place to sleep. That's basic. Some people change that, but over time, you might change things over time, the way people live. And I would think the same way, there's basics that we would want to put into each one of our facilities, but also addressing that all these things, number one, the basic environmental quality and safety are key points.
Okay, great, thank you.
This was hard.
Our first take was that this is a huge undertaking. How can we come up with anything in a half hour? Ensuring responsibility with resources, being efficient and transparent. That seems very obvious, but how do we do this? We think keeping public perception in mind, spending good money after bad seems unwise. We are specifically thinking about what we've heard all along about Central, North Albany Elementary School. And I keep thinking about how would we sell this to the public? That's what we're talking about here, is what we're trying to do with this initiative going forward. We must keep district spending responsible to the public and the needs of the students. It's a huge balancing act. I don't know how we can be any more concise.
So the way our guidance principle is lifelong learning centers, and the way we tackled that was, first of all, we were thinking about the Nelson report information and how maybe learning and presenting that to the public in terms of all the learning principles, why we should be funding the next bond, might be a hard sell. But and then we got to talking about how the last bond, kind of our tagline was, after on the call center, the first thing the voter wanted to know was, is it going to increase my taxes? But once we got past that, the tagline that worked was safe, warm, and dry. And we were talking about how that just seems like a baseline, like we heard other places, like that should just be a given that we need safe, warm, and dry. But how does learning fit into that if it's not as sexy of a sell to spend money on that? And then we just had a basic discussion saying is learning doesn't happen if you don't have those things. So we were just having conversations about, we have schools that just flat out aren't accessible to some students. Like they have a disability that they physically can't even get into the building. Is that really okay? Learning can't even happen for that child in their own community. That's probably not okay. So we had those sort of conversations. And then we could not find a nice way of saying, if the temperature is bad and you can't hear and your air quality is poor, you're not learning as well. And we didn't come up with a nice little tagline, little bite for that. But that's where our conversation went. Accessibility to the environment, safety. If we don't have those, we don't have learning, and learning is a priority. So that's kind of what we're talking about.
Who's next?
No, I went last year. You guys did this one.
Either way.
Put it right on the seat.
I thought about it.
Make sure the sticky gets on it.
Okay, our guiding principle is inclusive and empowering every student. And we had lots of discussion at our table, kind of interpreting what this map is showing, and then we ultimately came up with all schools need modernized HVAC, sound, and tech, which I think we heard in other sections here. Equitable distribution of students. We have at least one school that's over capacity. All students should have access to equal learning conditions. If you looked on, I don't remember which one it was, but our title schools had a red zone in almost all of them except North Albany. And then the last one, evaluate capacity at all schools and take action. All right, thank you so much. So this is how we like to end some of our sessions, about what were some of your aha moments, and then what do you want more information on for our next time? I know we've jotted down a couple of things that after going through this exercise and hearing all of the information, does anybody want to share what was kind of our aha moment?
I immediately was struck when I heard the electorate was going to make the decision was basically 60+ voters.
For me, that map was pretty eye-opening.
In what way?
In the red was in 4 schools and except for one, and it's a concern. I mean, we need to figure out how to make that more equitable as far as spending for school environments, because if the building's falling down around you, you're not gonna learn anything.
Right. Anyone else? Are there things you want to know more about after you saw some of the data today?
The demographics,
Demographics?
Yeah.
That one, we will have a guest speaker on our demographics.
and
Yep.
that will, just to be more specific, demographics by age group and by geographic area. Is that what we can expect?
Yeah, I haven't seen their draft yet, but that's something we can talk through.
Are you talking about the voting demographic?
No, I'm
Student
talking about the students and the community and residential demographics from within the district and what the trends are for where the construction is going and so forth.
Yeah, so we'll have 2 guest speakers next time, one from the city.
Yeah, but and I think we are gonna have someone from the east.
He's talking to town center.
But Flo will be on population projections in
Yeah.
general, I believe. They are going to come later with by school attendance boundary elementary, by school attendance boundary middle school, and then by high school. They will be working on that once they're done with this first presentation on just the general population. But Bob, one of the things we would be happy to do is we can work with these guys to put together poverty ratio, those kind of things by building and show that to you. And we can work with you guys on that. That's relatively easy.
Yeah, there's a great website through the Census Bureau that has all of that information that we can pull from.
I have a question about how did Waverly score so well? I would agree with you, Tony, also. I know the same exact thing.
Great teachers.
And that's my plug for what Rick had to say. If you can make it to any portion of those building visits, please try to do that. And so thank you, Dave, for setting those up, and I'll try to clear out my calendar a little bit to be able to join. But yeah, how to tell me in the future, how did we?
I felt the same way. I was shocked as a lifer in the district.
Yep.
I want to hear what the future plans are for building new schools, because that's what we get asked all the time. Is there going to be a high school on the east side, if you will, or east of I-5? That's kind of where some growth is. What's happening? That's a question that comes up all the time, and we don't know that yet.
Yeah. And we will definitely get through that information. A lot of it's going to be projections. Where are you now? How many students are you gaining or losing every year? So we'll definitely talk about that. I did hear, can we break down adequacy and facility assessments from the new building and the old building at West Albany to get a little clearer picture of those.
Maybe there's actually a few more of those. South Shore has a new building, North Albany Elementary School has some new buildings. So there's other sites that have some buildings that maybe we can look at as well.
Okay.
Lafayette had an addition.
Great.
Waverly did as well.
And it might be what's pulling Waverly's numbers up because of the new building there. Anything else?
I asked earlier about how much money we have put into these facilities in the last 10 years.
And was it just one, was central or for all schools?
I would say all, yeah.
All central.
We should have it for all of those.
Anything else? Okay. So next time, what we talked about, we'll hear more about population growth. We will also start getting into a little bit more specific concept ideas. So we're going to spend most of our time next time talking through some ideas that we've heard. Hopefully you have a chance to get through all of the reading between now and then. And starting up with, I guess, this Thursday, this week is the first set of tours. So do sign up. If you can't make them, I guess back in February is the replacement date. So highly encourage you guys to go walk the school. I'm going to send it first thing in the morning. Okay.
So as you look through each field facility and you have questions, don't not share them. Because someone, if we can clarify things as we go forward, sooner is better.
Yes.
Maybe a question for you. Do we own any vacant lots? Do we have to?
Yeah, we have some property. We can share that.
That would be
okay. All right.
One of my great goals is that the community is in charge, and I'm just going to say, just watching you guys visit tonight, I have no doubt that this group is more than willing to give us a lot of recommendations. Great job. Appreciate that. Give yourselves a hand for the work together. A couple things. We will, JL is, I think, a really accurate poller, and he's well thought of. We are not above using him again. We don't want to solve every question that comes up at the meeting, we wouldn't pull him. But if we do begin to feel like we need another connection back to the electorate and to the community that we're representing, that's not off the table as well, if we would develop another poll. He turned it around in 5 days. Right, so I think we finalized on Friday. I think we have the results by Thursday morning. Right, they just went out 3 nights. They did a little check to make sure that they had got the right people, so that we can have information if there begins to be a significant question. We really don't want that to snag this committee up. So,
how much does that cost? How to do that?
It's not a whole lot because we're only going for the 5%, right? So, and he just said, you have to go to so many more people to get 4%. You have to go to a huge number. So we're not going to get any closer than a rough assessment, but we can always tool those. And he does almost all his work at that tolerance anyway. So the numbers that he's seen time and time again, I think he has a feel for it. That's pretty good. So
how much does it cost?
I'll share it with you guys in the next meeting. Yes.
It may have been in the first meeting, but who provided the cost estimates for the repairs, the numbers we're seeing?
Sage News. And did Veritas do that too? The costing of the repair estimate?
Yes, we have 2 numbers, ours and then Bureau Veritas. We do not have updated numbers yet from Bureau Veritas after we gave them our comments. But we do have, you guys have the original reports that we can probably make public as well.
How old is that information?
2024 and 2025, so it's not too old. There's just some, whether they put things as a higher need or a lower need or didn't have them listed, were the things that we added to it. Like a lot of the lighting and controls replacements were not listed in a lot of schools, so.
And a lot of those dollar amounts we've tried to kind of swag on our best estimate, so we looked at square footage based on their prices in other categories.
Yeah.
To throw a number at it, and try to at least put it there so that we're somewhere in the ballpark.
So I would also like to see data on like-sized cities and school systems and how their enrollment is either up or down or trending, and then what their facilities, if possible, how the facilities compare to ours. I don't know, that's probably an impossible task, but it'd be nice to know what Beaverton is doing, or some other cities with about 60,000 people.
If you feel any better, most school districts have needs. So.
Well, I know I did, but like Corvallis is contracting, right? They're closing schools.
Yeah.
So, and we're growing, we're building a lot of housing right now. People can buy a house for $319,000 brand new. So, are we drawing from them or from other cities? Right, I'm trying to figure out what that looks like.
Great.
Thanks, everybody.
5 minutes early. Thank you.
Good job, y'all. So nobody told me to put the ballot box. Yeah.
Yeah, I know.